Colonel Quan Ho stood on the observation deck and watched the sunrise over New Pyongyang. The star of Threshold 7 painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, colors that never existed on Earth. He smiled. After 3 years of hard work, the colony finally felt like home. Below him, the city was waking up. Farmers headed to their fields. Children walked to school. The streets filled with the sounds of life. 50,000 people called this place home now. 50,000 humans who had traveled across the stars seeking a better future. Quan Ho's communicator buzzed. His sister's face appeared on the screen. "You're up early," Hyejin said. She looked tired but happy. As the colony's civilian administrator, she worked longer hours than anyone else. "Couldn't sleep," Quan Ho admitted. "Something feels wrong today." Hyejin laughed. "You always worry too much. Everything is fine. The harvest is good. The children are healthy. We're building a real community here." Quan Ho wanted to believe her, but 23 years ago, when humanity first met the aliens, he had learned to trust his instincts. The galaxy was not as friendly as it seemed. Earth had discovered faster-than-light travel in 2264. Within months, alien ships appeared in Earth's orbit. The Galactic Coalition welcomed humanity with open arms and promises of peace. But the peace came with conditions. Humanity had to limit their military forces. They could not develop certain weapons. They had to accept their place at the bottom of galactic society. The Coalition's leaders said these rules kept everyone safe. They said civilization required restraint. Earth's government agreed. They believed that time would prove humanity's worth. They believed that following the rules would earn them respect. Quan Ho had his doubts. He had served in Earth's military before the aliens came. He knew what humans were capable of when pushed, but orders were orders. He accepted the restrictions and hoped for the best. "I need to check the perimeter sensors," he told his sister. "I'll see you at dinner." "Don't forget," Hyejin said. "The school is having a performance tonight. The children have been practicing for weeks." Quan Ho smiled. "I wouldn't miss it." He ended the call and headed to the security center. The colony had minimal defenses. Coalition law limited what weapons humans could have. A few sensor arrays, some basic shields. Nothing that could stop a real threat. At the security center, Lieutenant Min Ho was reviewing the daily reports. He looked up as Quan Ho entered. "Everything quiet?" Quan Ho asked. "Too quiet," Min Ho said. "The Vakrosian ships have been circling the system for 3 days now. They haven't answered our hails." "The Vakrosians." Quan Ho felt his jaw tighten. The Vakrosian Empire controlled most of the Coalition's military power. They were stronger, faster, and more advanced than humans. They also made no secret of their contempt for humanity. To the Vakrosians, humans were primitives who had surrendered too easily. A species with no honor. Weak creatures who didn't deserve to walk among the stars. "Keep monitoring them," Quan Ho said. "Let me know if they change position." He spent the morning reviewing security protocols. Not that it mattered much. If the Vakrosians wanted to attack, the colony's defenses would last maybe 10 minutes, but it gave him something to do, something to focus on besides the growing anxiety in his chest. At noon, his communicator exploded with alerts. Ambassador Dae-sung's face filled the screen. The man looked pale and frightened. "Quan Ho," Dae-sung said, "we have a problem." "What happened?" "The Vakrosians are demanding we surrender Threshold 7. They claim they have rights to the mineral deposits we discovered last month." Quan Ho felt cold. "What did you tell them?" "I told them no. The colony is legal human territory under Coalition law. The minerals belong to us." Dae-sung paused. They didn't like that answer. "What are they going to do?" "I don't know. I've contacted the Coalition Council. I'm waiting for their response." Dae-sung's eyes showed fear. "Quan Ho, start evacuation protocols just in case." The call ended. Quan Ho immediately activated the colony-wide alert system. This is Colonel Quan Ho. All citizens report to designated evacuation points. This is not a drill. Move quickly, but stay calm. Take only essential supplies. The streets filled with confusion. People grabbed their children and ran for the transport stations. Hyejin's voice came over the communicator. "What's happening?" she demanded. "The Vakrosians want our world," Quan Ho said. "We're evacuating. We have 50,000 people here. We can't evacuate everyone in—" "I know. Just do your best. Focus on the children first." Quan Ho ran to the spaceport. Only 12 transport ships. Each could carry maybe 500 people if they packed tight. That meant 6,000 people at most. What about the other 44,000? He sent urgent messages to Earth, to the Coalition, to anyone who would listen. He begged for help, for more ships, for protection, for anything. The responses came slowly. Earth promised to send help, but their nearest ships were weeks away. The Coalition sent messages of concern, but no action. Some council members suggested negotiation. Others said nothing at all. No one was coming to help. Lieutenant Min Ho burst into the spaceport control room. "Sir, the Vakrosian fleet just entered orbit. They're broadcasting a message." Quan Ho pulled up the transmission. Commander Thelvex's face appeared. The Vakrosian looked at the camera with cold, reptilian eyes. "Humans of Threshold 7, Thelvex said. "You have 1 hour to evacuate this world. After that, we will remove you by force. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. 1 hour. Quan Ho looked at the chaos in the spaceport. Thousands of people pushing and shoving to get onto the ships. Parents holding crying children. Old people struggling to move through the crowd. 1 hour to save 50,000 lives. It was impossible. Hyejin appeared beside him. Her face was streaked with tears, but her voice was steady. "The schools are evacuating," she said. "We're getting the children out first, but there are so many of them, and the ships are so small." Quan Ho pulled her into a tight embrace. "Do what you can. That's all anyone can do." "This isn't right," Hyejin whispered. "We followed their rules. We did everything they asked. Why is this happening?" Quan Ho had no answer. He could only watch as the minutes ticked away. As families were torn apart deciding who would board the ships and who would stay behind, as hope drained from people's faces. The first transport lifted off 30 minutes into the hour, then the second, then the third. Each one carrying precious human lives to safety, each one leaving thousands behind. Quan Ho stayed on the ground. He was the colony's military commander. He would be the last to leave, if he left at all. Hyejin refused to board the ships. "My place is with the people," she said. She ran back to the schools to help evacuate more children. The hour passed like a dream. Quan Ho watched the clock count down, watched the transports flee into space, watched the Vakrosian warships position themselves in orbit above the colony. When the hour ended, only 8 ships had escaped. Maybe 4,000 people. Maybe. 46,000 remained. Quan Ho stood in the city square and looked up at the sky. He could see the Vakrosian ships now, dark shapes blocking out the stars. His communicator buzzed one last time, a final message from Earth. "Quan Ho, this is General Tae Jin. I'm sorry, we're not going to reach you in time. I'm so sorry." Quan Ho closed his eyes. "Tell my parents I love them." "I will," the general said quietly. "And Quan Ho, record everything. The galaxy needs to see what happens next." The transmission ended. Quan Ho activated his suit's recording systems. Then he waited. Above him, the Vakrosian warships began to glow, energy weapons charging, bombs being armed. This was it. This was how humanity learned the truth about the galaxy. Not all species believed in civilization. Not all species valued life. And some species saw mercy as weakness. The first energy beam struck the eastern district. The explosion lit up the sky. Then the real massacre began. The sky turned red with fire. Quan Ho watched the eastern district disappear in a ball of flame. Buildings that families had spent years constructing vanished in seconds. The shockwave knocked him off his feet. His ears rang. Smoke filled his lungs. He forced himself to stand. Around him, people were screaming and running in all directions. Most had nowhere to run to. The transports were gone. There was no shelter strong enough to survive orbital bombardment. "Everyone to the underground shelters!" Quan Ho shouted. His voice was lost in the chaos, but a few people heard him and started moving. The shelters couldn't save them from direct hits, but maybe they would survive the shrapnel and fire. Another beam struck the residential zone. Then another hit the medical center. The Vacrosians were being methodical. They were destroying the colony piece by piece, making sure nothing survived. Quan Ho's communicator still worked. He switched to the emergency frequency. "This is Colonel Quan Ho. Any remaining ships, launch now. Don't wait. Get out while you can." 2 more transports lifted off from the southern spaceport. The Vacrosians let them go. They weren't interested in the survivors. They wanted the world, and they wanted to send a message. Quan Ho ran toward the school district. Hye-jin was there. He had to find her. The streets were burning. Bodies lay everywhere. Some were still moving, crying out for help. Quan Ho stopped to pull a child from beneath a collapsed wall. The girl was maybe 7 years old. She stared at him with blank, shocked eyes. "Where's my mom?" she whispered. "I don't know, sweetheart. Can you run? You need to get to the shelters." The girl nodded. Quan Ho pointed her in the right direction and kept moving. He wanted to help everyone, but there wasn't time. The bombardment was getting worse. A beam struck 3 blocks ahead of him. The explosion threw him backward. His shoulder hit the ground hard. Pain shot through his arm, but he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. The school came into view. Half of it was already destroyed. Flames poured from broken windows. Quan Ho ran through the main entrance. "Hye-jin!" he shouted. Smoke filled the hallways. He covered his mouth with his sleeve and pushed deeper into the building. Classroom doors hung open. Tiny desks sat empty. Children's artwork covered the walls, now burning. He found her in the main assembly hall. Hye-jin was helping children climb through a broken window. Maybe 20 kids were with her, the ones who hadn't made it onto the transports. She looked up as Quan Ho entered. "Thank the stars," she said. "Help me get them out." Together they lifted the children through the window. Outside, a teacher named Ji-woo was gathering them together. She held a small recording device, documenting everything with shaking hands. "Run for the western shelter," Quan Ho told her. "Don't stop for anything." Ji-woo nodded and started leading the children away. But they had only gone a few steps when another explosion rocked the ground. The building next to the school collapsed, sending debris flying in all directions. Quan Ho threw himself over Hye-jin. Chunks of concrete rained down around them. He felt something heavy hit his back. Pain exploded through his spine. When the dust cleared, he looked up. Ji-woo and most of the children were still alive. They were running now, disappearing into the smoke, but not all of them had made it. 3 small bodies lay motionless on the ground. "No," Hye-jin whispered. She tried to go to them, but Quan Ho held her back. "They're gone. We have to keep moving." Tears streamed down Hye-jin's face. "This isn't war. This is murder." "I know." They ran. The bombardment continued for another hour, then 2, then 3. The Vacrosians weren't trying to conquer the colony. They were erasing it. Every building, every home, every trace that humans had ever lived there. Quan Ho and Hye-jin found shelter in an underground storage facility. 50 other survivors huddled in the darkness with them. They listened to the explosions above, felt the ground shake, breathed recycled air, and prayed the ceiling wouldn't collapse. Lieutenant Min Ho was there too. His face was covered in blood from a head wound, but he was alive. "I managed to get a message out," Min Ho said quietly. "Someone on Earth will know what happened here." "Good," Quan Ho said. though he wondered if it mattered. The galaxy already knew humans were weak. This would just confirm it. After 6 hours, the explosion stopped. Silence fell over the ruins of New Pyongyang. Quan Ho waited another hour before opening the shelter door. He needed to be sure the Vicrosians were gone. What he saw when he emerged destroyed something inside him. The city was gone. Completely gone. Nothing remained but rubble and ash. Buildings had been reduced to foundations. Streets were craters. The beautiful sunrise he had watched that morning would never illuminate the colony again. Bodies were everywhere. Quan Ho walked through the ruins like a ghost. Hye Jin followed him, her hand gripping his arm tight enough to hurt. Neither of them spoke. There were no words for this. They found Jiwoo near what used to be the school. She was still alive, still clutching her recording device. Her leg was badly burned, but she had survived. "I got it all," Jiwoo whispered. "I recorded everything. The galaxy needs to see this." Other survivors emerged from shelters and wreckage. Quan Ho counted them. 200, maybe 300, out of 46,000. The Vicrosian ships were gone. They had completed their mission and left. They didn't even bother to check for survivors. Quan Ho's communicator crackled to life, a weak signal from orbit. "This is Transport Vessel Haven's Light. Is anyone alive down there?" "This is Colonel Quan Ho. We have survivors. Maybe 300. We're coming down. Hold on." 2 transport ships landed in the ruins. They had been hiding on the far side of the planet, waiting for the bombardment to end. Now they came to collect what was left of humanity's colony. Loading the survivors was a grim process. Many were injured, some were dying, all were traumatized beyond measure. Children who had watched their parents burn, parents who had lost their children, people who had lost everything. Quan Ho made sure Hye Jin boarded the first transport. She argued, wanting to stay and help, but he forced her to go. "Someone needs to live to tell this story," he said. "Someone needs to make sure the galaxy knows what happened." "Come with me," Hye Jin begged. "I will. On the last transport. I promise." He lied. As the military commander, his duty was to be the last one to leave, and if there wasn't room for everyone, he would stay behind. But in the end, there was room. 300 survivors fit easily into 2 ships. Such a small number, such a terrible price. Jiwoo sat across from Quan Ho as the transport lifted off. She was reviewing the footage she had recorded. Her face was pale and wet with tears. 47,000 people, she said. Gone. And for what? Minerals? Territory? Quan Ho had no answer. He looked out the viewport at the burning planet below, at the graveyard that used to be a thriving colony. The transport jumped to faster-than-light speed. The journey to Earth would take 5 days. 5 days to process what had happened. 5 days to mourn the dead. On the 3rd day, the Galactic Coalition released a statement. Quan Ho read it in disbelief. The statement called the massacre regrettable and unfortunate. It expressed concern about the loss of life. It suggested that perhaps humanity should have evacuated faster. It recommended better communication between species in the future, but it took no action against the Vicrosians. No punishment, no sanctions, nothing. The Coalition's message was clear. Human lives didn't matter. Hye Jin threw her datapad across the cabin when she read the statement. 23 years, she said. 23 years we followed their rules. We trusted them. We believed in their civilization. They don't see us as civilized, Minho said quietly. To them, we're animals. Less than animals. Quan Ho felt something cold settle in his chest. Something hard and angry and patient. They made a mistake, he said. What do you mean? They think we're weak because we chose peace. They think we're harmless because we followed their rules. Quan Ho looked at the recording device Jiwoo still carried. They forgot that we chose to be civilized. We chose restraint. We chose peace. And now, Hyejin asked. Now someone needs to remind them what humans are like when they stop choosing. The transport reached Earth on the 5th day. Quan Ho and the other survivors were immediately taken to military headquarters. General Tai Jin himself met them at the landing pad. The general was a stern man with gray hair and cold eyes. He had fought in the wars before humanity met the aliens. He understood violence in a way most modern humans didn't. Tai Jin embraced Quan Ho briefly, then stepped back. "Show me the footage," he said. They gathered in the War Council chamber. Jiwoo's recording played on the main screen. Every council member watched in silence as New Pyongyang burned, as children died, as a civilization was erased. When the footage ended, General Tae-jin stood up. His hands were shaking with rage. "How long?" he asked quietly. "Sir?" one of the council members said. "How long until our real fleet is ready?" The room went silent. Everyone knew what he meant. The secret fleet. The weapons humanity had been building in hidden shipyards for the past 20 years. The military power they had concealed from the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Bo Ram spoke up. "We can have the first battle group operational in 72 hours. "Do it," Tae-jin said, "and prepare a message for the Galactic Coalition." "What should the message say?" someone asked. General Tae-jin looked at the frozen image on the screen. The burning city, the dead children, the ruins of human hope. "Tell them we're done being civilized." General Tai-jin stood before the communication array and prepared to deliver the message that would change everything. Behind him, the War Council waited in silence. Fleet Admiral Bo-ram stood at attention. Intelligence Director Young-sik monitored the broadcast systems. And in the corner, still wearing bandages from her injuries, Jiwoo held her recording device ready. "Broadcasting on all coalition frequencies," Young-sik confirmed. "Every government in the galaxy will receive this." Tae-jin nodded. He looked directly into the camera, his face calm, but his eyes burning with controlled fury. "I am General Tae-jin of Earth's Defense Forces. This message is for the Galactic Coalition, the Vakrosian Empire, and every species that claims to value civilization." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. 23 years ago, humanity joined your coalition. We agreed to your terms. We limited our military forces. We restricted our weapons development. We accepted our place at the bottom of your hierarchy. We did all of this because we believed in peace. We believed in law. We believed in civilization. On screens across the galaxy, beings of 100 different species stopped what they were doing to watch. For 23 years, we played by your rules. When Vakrosian ships bullied our traders, we filed complaints instead of fighting back. When coalition species mocked us as primitives, we proved ourselves through hard work instead of violence. When we were denied basic rights, we waited patiently for justice. Tae-jin's voice grew harder. We chose to be civilized. We chose it. Do you understand what that means? It means we had other options. It means we could have been different. But we made a choice every single day to follow your laws and respect your customs. Behind the camera, Young-sik signaled that viewership numbers were climbing. Half the galaxy was watching now. 3 days ago, the Vakrosian Empire murdered 47,000 human civilians on Threshold 7. They bombed our colony for 6 hours. They killed children in schools. They burned families in their homes. They erased an entire city from existence. Tae-jin gestured and Jiwoo's footage began playing on a split screen. The galaxy watched New Pyongyang burn. The coalition called this regrettable. The council expressed concern. But they did nothing. No justice, no punishment, no consequences. You taught us that civilization means restraint, but you forgot to practice what you preach. The general leaned closer to the camera. You made a mistake. A terrible mistake. You forgot that humans didn't evolve on a peaceful world. You forgot that we climbed to the top of our food chain not because we were the biggest or the strongest or the fastest. We made it because we were smart, adaptable, and very, very good at violence when we needed to be. Across the galaxy, coalition leaders began to pay closer attention. You looked at our willingness to compromise and saw weakness. You looked at our restraint and thought we were harmless. You forgot that we were choosing to be civilized, and now you've given us a reason to make a different choice. Tae-Jin straightened his uniform. This is your only warning. The Vacrosian Empire will return the remains of our dead for proper burial. They will surrender every officer involved in the massacre to stand trial on Earth. They will pay reparations to the survivors, and they will formally apologize to humanity. He paused. You have 72 hours. If you refuse, or if you ignore this message, we will no longer be civilized. The transmission ended. Silence filled the War Council chamber. Then Bo-Ram spoke quietly. Do you think they'll comply? No, Tae-Jin said. They think we're bluffing. Are we? Tae-Jin looked at the frozen image of burning New Pyongyang still on the screen, at the tiny bodies in the rubble, at the futures that would never exist. Not even a little bit. Young-Sik began receiving responses almost immediately. Most were from smaller coalition species expressing support for humanity. Some were from governments offering neutral mediation. A few were from species saying Earth had no right to make demands. The Vacrosian Empire's response came 6 hours later. Commander Thelvex's face appeared on the screen, sneering with contempt. The Vacrosian Empire does not negotiate with primitives. We took Threshold 7 because it was ours by right of strength. If the humans object, they are welcome to try and do something about it. We'll add their homeworld to our territory next. The message ended with mocking laughter. In the War Council chamber, several officers began shouting in anger. Tae-Jin raised his hand for silence. Exactly what I expected, he said calmly. Admiral Bo-Ram, activate protocol reversion. Bo-Ram's eyes widened. Sir, are you certain? Do it. Protocol reversion. The emergency authorization that would unseal humanity's true military capabilities. For 20 years, humanity had been building weapons in secret. Hidden shipyards in asteroid fields. Research stations disguised as mining operations. Weapons programs buried under layers of false data. The coalition thought humanity had a dozen warships. They were about to learn the truth. Bo-Ram entered the authorization codes. Across Earth's solar system and in 100 secret locations throughout space, systems began to activate. Dr. Sunmi appeared on the screen from the primary weapons development facility. She looked excited and terrified at the same time. General, we're ready. All projects are operational. Just give the word. What do we have? Tae-Jin asked. Sunmi pulled up a holographic display. 64 stealth warships equipped with cloaking technology the Coalition can't detect. 300 AI-guided hunter drones capable of independent operation. Kinetic kill vehicles that can accelerate to 0.95 light speed. And some weapons I really hope we don't need to use. Such as? Biological agents designed to target specific genetic markers. Nanoweapon swarms, gravity manipulation devices, and one planet killer. The room went quiet. We built a planet killer? Bo-Ram asked. Just in case, Sunmi said. We'll never use it. But I thought the galaxy should know we could if we wanted to. Tae-Jin considered this. A weapon that could destroy entire worlds. The kind of weapon civilized species would never build. Hide it for now, he said. But yes, let's make sure the galaxy knows it exists. Sometimes the threat is enough. Young-Sik spoke up. General, we're receiving a private communication from the Coalition Council. Ambassador Velnir wants to speak with you. Put him through. The screen changed to show a tall, slender alien with multiple eyes. Velnir was one of the more reasonable Coalition leaders. He had always treated humans with basic respect. General Tai Jin, Velnir said carefully. I watched your broadcast. I understand your anger. What happened on Threshold 7 was wrong. But you must understand, military action against the Vacrosians would be suicide. They are too strong. We'll see, Tai Jin said. Please reconsider. Let us try diplomatic solutions. Give us time to build pressure on the Vacrosians through proper channels. How much time? Days? Weeks? Years? How long should we wait for justice, Velnir? How many more humans need to die while you talk? The ambassador looked pained. War will only make things worse. For who? For the Vacrosians? Good. Taejin leaned forward. For 23 years, we waited for your diplomacy to work. We watched our people be humiliated, cheated, and abused while you did nothing. And when they murdered 47,000 civilians, you called it regrettable. I know. The council failed you. I admit that. But no more buts, no more excuses, no more waiting. Taejin's voice was final. The Vacrosians have 72 hours. That's all. He ended the transmission. Captain Hyun Woo entered the chamber. He was the commander of the stealth carrier Soul's Vengeance, one of humanity's most advanced ships. He saluted sharply. You called for me, sir? How many ships do you have operational? 12 stealth frigates fully crewed and ready. Another 20 that could be ready in 48 hours. Take the 12. I want you in Vacrosian space before the deadline expires. Don't engage unless I give the order. But be ready. Yunwoo smiled grimly. It would be my honor, sir. As the captain left, Taejin turned to Jiwoo. The young woman had been quiet throughout the meeting, but her eyes were hard with determination. You don't need to stay here, he told her gently. You've been through enough. Go home, rest, try to heal. Jiwoo shook her head. I want to be here. I want to see this through. Those were my students who died, my neighbors, my friends. She clutched her recording device. Someone needs to document what comes next. Someone needs to show the galaxy that humanity doesn't just accept atrocities. Taejin respected that. He nodded. The next 72 hours passed slowly. Earth's military mobilized. Ships that had been hidden for decades emerged from their concealment. Soldiers who had trained in secret prepared for deployment. Weapons that violated every coalition treaty were armed and loaded. The galaxy watched with growing unease. Some species began to realize that humanity might not be as weak as they thought. Others dismissed the preparations as desperation. The Vacrosians did nothing but laugh. Young Sik provided regular updates on galactic reactions. 17 species have officially condemned our military buildup. 8 have expressed cautious support. The rest are staying neutral. The Vacrosian fleet is gathering near their home system. They're treating this like a joke. Let them, Taejin said. Underestimating your enemy is a fatal mistake. They're about to learn that lesson the hard way. Hyejin came to see him on the final day. She had been released from medical care and was staying with Kwan Ho in military housing. Is there really no other way? She asked. Would diplomacy bring back the dead? No, but more killing won't either. Taejin looked at her. This woman had lost everything on Threshold 7, but still believed in peace. He admired that, but he couldn't afford to share it. You're right, he said quietly. Nothing we do will bring them back. But we can make sure it never happens again. We can make sure that when the galaxy looks at humanity, they see a species that protects its people, not victims, not primitives, not acceptable targets. And if we become monsters in the process? We won't, because unlike the Vacrosians, we'll know when to stop. The 72 hours expired with no response from the Vacrosian Empire. No apology, no reparations, no justice, just silence. General Taejin walked to the command center and gave the order he knew was coming. All forces, this is command. You are authorized to engage. Show them what humanity really is. Captain Hyunwoo's voice came back immediately. Soul's Vengeance copies, beginning operation. Across the galaxy, in the darkness between stars, human ships came alive. The war had begun. The first Vakrosian ship disappeared on a Tuesday. The cargo vessel Korthax was traveling between mining stations when it simply vanished from all sensors. One moment it was there, broadcasting normal signals. The next moment, nothing. No distress call, no debris, no trace. The Vakrosian Navy assumed equipment failure. They sent another ship to investigate. That ship also disappeared. Within a week, 12 Vakrosian vessels had gone missing. Fear began to spread through their fleet. Crews started refusing assignments. Captains demanded military escorts for simple cargo runs. They had no idea what was hunting them. Captain Hyun-woo watched from the command deck of Soul's Vengeance as another target appeared on his sensors. A Vakrosian patrol cruiser, scanning empty space for threats it couldn't detect. Target locked, his weapons officer reported. Fire, Hyun-woo said calmly. The stealth frigate's weapons tore through the Vakrosian ship's shields like paper. Before the enemy could even identify where the attack came from, their ship was disabled. Life support failed. The crew had minutes to evacuate. Send the message, Hyun-woo ordered. A pre-recorded transmission played on all Vakrosian emergency frequencies. General Tae-jin's voice cold and clear. This is what happens when you murder innocents. This is what happens when you ignore justice. Your fleet will fall, one ship at a time, until you surrender those responsible for the Threshold 7 massacre. You cannot see us. You cannot stop us. You can only choose whether more of your people die. Soul's Vengeance cloaked and disappeared before rescue ships could arrive. Back on Earth, Intelligence Director Young-sik monitored the psychological impact. Vakrosian military communications show massive panic. They're calling our ships ghosts. Some crews are refusing to leave port. General Tae-jin allowed himself a small smile. Good. Fear is a weapon too. But the ghost ships were only the beginning. Commander Miran led a team of 12 Special Operations soldiers through the sewers beneath Vakros Prime's capital city. Their mission was simple: infiltrate the planetary defense network and deliver a message the Vakrosians would never forget. Miran had volunteered for this assignment personally. She had lost a cousin on Threshold 7. A young engineer named Dong-woo, who had dreamed of building cities on distant worlds. Now he was Ash, and Miran was here to make the Vakrosians understand what they had done. Security checkpoint ahead, whispered Specialist Insu, checking his scanner. 4 guards. Non-lethal takedown, Miran ordered. We're not here to kill civilians. They moved like shadows. The guards never knew what hit them. Within 30 seconds, all 4 were unconscious and bound. Miran's team reached the central defense hub 20 minutes later. Tech specialist Byung-ho cracked the security systems with practiced ease. We're in, he said. Full access to their planetary network. Upload the package, Miran ordered. Every screen on Vakros Prime suddenly went dark. In homes, offices, public squares, and military bases, billions of Vakrosians watched their displays shut down. Then Jiwoo's footage began to play. They saw New Pyongyang burning. They saw children dying in the streets. They saw 6 hours of systematic massacre. And they heard a simple message in their own language. This is what your military did in your name. This is the truth your leaders hid from you. 47,000 civilians murdered for minerals and pride. You claim to be civilized. You claim to value honor. This is what your honor looks like. The footage played for 12 minutes before Vakrosian authorities managed to shut it down, but 12 minutes was enough. 12 minutes for millions of Vakrosians to see the truth. Riots broke out in 3 major cities. Protesters demanded answers. Some called for the prosecution of military leaders. Others defended the massacre as necessary. Vakrosian society began to tear itself apart. And while they were distracted, Miran's team struck every military installation on the planet. Weapons factories exploded, shipyards burned, command centers went dark. The attacks were precise and surgical. No civilian casualties, only military targets, only those who could fight back. Miran watched from a safe house as the capital's military district filled with fire. "Message sent," she reported to Earth. "Vakros Prime's defensive capabilities are down by 70%. "Well done," General Tae-jin replied. "Return home." "Actually, sir, we've been invited to stay." "By who?" "The Vakrosian resistance. Turns out not everyone here supports what their government did. Some of them want to help." Tae-jin paused. He hadn't expected that. "Be careful. It could be a trap." "Understood. But, sir, if we can turn their own people against them, we won't need to fire another shot." The general considered this. Humanity wasn't just fighting a war. They were fighting for hearts and minds, showing the galaxy that they weren't monsters, even in war. "Proceed carefully," he authorized. "And Miran, remember what we're fighting for. We're not becoming like them." "Never, sir." While Miran worked to divide the Vakrosian people, Fleet Admiral Bo-Ram led the main human fleet in a series of devastating strikes against military targets. The battle for the Korval system was humanity's first open engagement. 6 Vakrosian cruisers against 3 human destroyers. The Vakrosians expected an easy victory. They were wrong. Bo-Ram's ships fought with a ferocity the Vakrosians had never encountered. Human pilots flew patterns that made no sense to alien tacticians. They used gravity wells as weapons. They hid in asteroid fields and ambushed from impossible angles. They sacrificed shields to get killing shots. When a human destroyer took critical damage, its captain didn't retreat. Instead, she rammed her dying ship directly into a Vakrosian cruiser, destroying both vessels. "For Threshold 7, were her last transmitted words. The remaining Vakrosian ships fled. They reported facing an enemy that fought like demons, willing to die to achieve victory. Young Sik showed Tae-jin the reports. Vakrosian Military Command is requesting permission to use heavier weapons. They want to deploy their bioweapons against Earth. "Let them try," Tae-jin said coldly. "We have countermeasures they can't imagine. And if they use weapons of mass destruction, we'll show them ours." Dr. Sunmi had been working around the clock developing defensive systems. Her team had created vaccines against every known Vakrosian biological agent. They had shield technology that could deflect radiation weapons. They had prepared for every possible attack. "We're not the primitives they think we are," Sunmi reported. "We've been preparing for this for 20 years. They're fighting the war they expected. We're fighting the war we planned." The conflict escalated. Human forces struck deep into Vakrosian territory. They destroyed supply lines. They disabled communications. They made the mighty Vakrosian Empire look weak and confused. But Tae-jin was careful to avoid excessive civilian casualties. Every strike was precisely targeted. Every attack had a military purpose. He wanted the galaxy to see that humanity could wage war without losing its soul. Kwan Ho had requested a combat assignment despite his injuries from Threshold 7. Tae-jin gave him command of a frigate called New Pyongyang's Revenge. "Make it count," the general told him. Kwan Ho and his crew hunted Vakrosian ships with cold determination. They painted their confirmed kills on the hull. After 3 months, they had destroyed 14 enemy vessels. But Kwan Ho took no joy in it. He felt empty inside. Revenge didn't bring back his sister. It didn't heal his wounds. It just made more graves. After a particularly brutal engagement, he spoke to Tae-jin via secure channel. "When does it end, sir?" Kwan Ho asked. "How many of them need to die before we're satisfied?" "As many as it takes," Tae-jin said, "but not one more than necessary." "And who decides what's necessary?" The general had no easy answer. We do, and we'll have to live with those decisions for the rest of our lives. 6 months into the war, the Vacrosian Empire was in chaos. Their fleet was shattered, their economy was collapsing, their people were divided, and they still couldn't find most of the human ships hunting them. Commander Thelvex, who had ordered the Threshold 7 massacre, was found dead in his quarters. Officially, it was suicide. Unofficially, human special forces had delivered justice. Young Sick reported that 3/4 of the galaxy now supported humanity's cause. The other quarter was too terrified of humanity to oppose them. Coalition species are starting to call us the demons, Young Sick said. Some admire us, others fear us, none dismiss us anymore. Good, Tae-Jin said. Respect born from fear is still respect. But not everyone agreed with the war. Hye-Jin had been speaking at peace rallies on Earth. She argued that humanity was losing itself in violence. We're becoming what we hate, she told crowds. We're using the same tactics of fear and destruction that were used against us. Tae-Jin met with her privately after one such rally. You have the right to protest, he told her. That's what we're fighting for. The right to disagree. The right to speak freely. The rights the coalition denied us. Then end this war, Hye-Jin pleaded. We've made our point. The galaxy knows we're strong. Stop before we go too far. We'll stop when justice is served, when the Vacrosians pay for what they did, when the galaxy understands that human lives matter. And how many Vacrosian lives will that cost? Tae-Jin looked at her with tired eyes. I don't know, but I know the cost of doing nothing. I saw it on Threshold 7. I saw 47,000 people murdered while the galaxy watched. I won't let that happen again. Even if it means becoming monsters ourselves? We're not monsters. Monsters kill without purpose. We're soldiers fighting a war we didn't start. There's a difference. Hye-Jin left unsatisfied. But she continued speaking out, continued advocating for peace. And Tae-Jin let her, because that's what separated humanity from the Vacrosians. Humans could question their leaders. They could protest. They could demand accountability. They could choose to remain civilized, even in war. As the 6th month ended, Intelligence Director Young Sik brought news that would change everything. General, we're receiving a transmission from the Vacrosian High Command. They want to negotiate. Tae-Jin looked up sharply. Terms? They're offering full surrender. The War Council chamber erupted in celebration. 6 months of fighting had brought the mighty Vacrosian Empire to its knees. Humanity had won, but Tae-Jin didn't celebrate. He just felt tired. Get me a secure channel to their leadership, he ordered. It's time to discuss what comes next. The war was ending, but the hard part was just beginning. The Vacrosian delegation arrived on Earth 3 days later. General Tae-Jin stood in the landing zone and watched their ship descend. Fleet Admiral Bo-Ram stood beside him, along with Intelligence Director Young Sik and a company of armed guards. They were taking no chances. The Vacrosian representatives emerged slowly. Their leader was an elderly female named Kethra. She looked tired and defeated. Behind her came 4 military officers and 2 civilian administrators. Kethra approached Tae-Jin and did something no Vacrosian had ever done to a human before. She bowed. General Tae-Jin, we come to discuss terms of peace. Tae-Jin did not return the bow. You come to discuss terms of surrender. There's a difference. Yes, Kethra agreed quietly. We surrender. The negotiations took place in a secure conference room. The human delegation included military leaders, civilian representatives, and 3 survivors from Threshold 7. Kwan Ho was among them. Tae-Jin laid out his terms clearly. First, you will return the remains of every person killed on Threshold 7 for proper burial according to human customs. Agreed, Kethra said. Second, every officer involved in ordering or executing the massacre will be surrendered to human authorities to stand trial on Earth. Kethra hesitated. Many of those officers are dead already. Your forces killed them during the war. Then you'll surrender whoever remains. We'll accept video testimony from those who died naturally, but anyone still alive faces human justice. Understood. Third, the Vacrosian Empire will pay reparations to the survivors and the families of the dead. We're not interested in bankrupting your people, but there must be compensation. How much? Young Sick provided the figure. It was substantial, but not impossible. Kethra nodded slowly. We can pay that over time. Our economy is damaged, but we will honor the debt. Fourth, Taejin continued, you will issue a formal public apology. Not some vague statement, a real apology acknowledging what happened and taking responsibility. We will do so. And fifth, you will support humanity's petition to reform the Galactic Coalition. All species will have equal rights, equal representation, and equal protection under the law. The days of second-class citizenship are over. This caused the Vacrosian delegation to murmur among themselves. One of the military officers spoke up. That will completely restructure galactic power dynamics. Many species will object. Let them, Taejin said coldly. After what we've accomplished in 6 months, I don't think anyone will object too loudly. Kethra silenced her delegation. We will support your reforms. You have earned that right. The formal treaty was signed the next day. Kwan Ho watched from the gallery as representatives from both species put their marks on the document. He felt nothing. No triumph. No satisfaction. Just emptiness. Hyejin sat beside him. She took his hand. It's over, she said softly. Is it? Kwan Ho asked. Will this bring them back? Will this erase what happened? No. But it means they didn't die for nothing. It means the galaxy changed because of them. 2 weeks later, the first transport ship arrived from Vacros Prime carrying the remains of the dead. Taejin personally oversaw the transfer. Each set of remains was treated with dignity and respect. Each name was read aloud. It took 3 days to read all 47,000 names. Jiwoo recorded everything. She had become humanity's unofficial historian of the war. Her footage of the massacre had been seen across the galaxy. Now she documented the piece. Do you think it was worth it? She asked Taejin during a quiet moment. War is never worth it, he replied, but sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes the cost of doing nothing is higher than the cost of fighting. And now? Now we rebuild. We remember, and we make sure it never happens again. The Galactic Coalition formally convened 1 month after the treaty signing. Ambassador Jae-won represented humanity. He was young for a diplomat, barely 40, but he had earned his position through brilliant negotiations during the war's final weeks. Jae-won stood before the council and presented humanity's demands for reform. The coalition was built on the idea that all species deserve representation and protection, he began. But the reality has been different. Powerful species dominate weaker ones. The strong write the laws, and the weak follow them. That ends today. He outlined the proposed changes: equal voting rights for all species, an independent court to hear disputes, strict prohibitions on military aggression, consequences for violations. The council members shifted uncomfortably. They knew what would happen if they refused. They had seen the Vacrosian Empire brought low. They had no desire to test humanity's patience. Ambassador Velnir, who had tried to prevent the war, spoke in support. The humans are right. We failed them, and we failed ourselves. The massacre on Threshold 7 happened because we allowed it to happen. Because we looked the other way when strong species bullied weak ones. That cannot continue. After 3 days of debate, the council voted to accept the reforms. Not unanimously, but by a clear majority. The galaxy would change. Jae-won returned to Earth exhausted but successful. General Tae Jin met him at the spaceport. "You did well," the general said. "I just followed your template," Jae-won replied. "Show strength but offer partnership. Make them understand they have more to gain from cooperation than conflict. That's diplomacy at its finest. Is that what we're calling it? I thought we just terrified them into compliance." Tae Jin smiled grimly. "Those aren't mutually exclusive." The memorial on Threshold 7 was completed 6 months after the war ended. Kwon Ho traveled there for the dedication ceremony. Thousands of humans made the pilgrimage. Even some Vacrosians came to pay respects. The memorial was simple. Rows of stone markers bearing names and dates. No grand statues, no elaborate monuments. Just names. 47,000 reminders of what had been lost. Tae Jin stood at the entrance and addressed the gathered crowd. "We come here not to celebrate victory, but to remember the cost. These people did not die as soldiers. They died as civilians, as farmers and teachers and parents and children. They died because the galaxy thought human lives didn't matter." He paused, looking at the endless rows of markers. "The galaxy was wrong. Human lives do matter. Every life matters, and anyone who forgets that lesson will answer to us." Kwon Ho found Hyejin's marker in the 5th row. He knelt and placed flowers on the ground. Someone had already left flowers there, and candles, and a small toy from the school she had tried to save. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you," he whispered. "I'm sorry this happened." A voice spoke behind him. "You have nothing to apologize for." Kwon Ho turned to see an elderly Vacrosian standing there. The alien looked uncomfortable but determined. "My name is Telvar," the Vacrosian said. "My son was a navigator on one of the ships that bombed this colony. When he learned what he had participated in, he took his own life." The alien's voice cracked. "I came to say that not all of us supported what happened. Some of us are ashamed. Some of us understand that what was done here was evil." Kwon Ho didn't know what to say. Telvar continued. "I know my apology means nothing. I know it won't bring anyone back. But I needed to come here. I needed to see. I needed to understand what my son helped destroy." "Thank you," Kwon Ho said finally, "for coming, for acknowledging the truth." The two of them stood in silence for a moment. Then Telvar placed his own flowers on Hyejin's grave and walked away. Later that day, Tae Jin found Kwon Ho sitting alone among the graves. "Permission to sit, Colonel?" "Of course, sir." They sat together in the fading light. The alien sunset painted the sky the same colors Kwon Ho had seen on his last morning in the colony. "Do you regret it?" Kwon Ho asked. "The war, the violence, what we became." Tae Jin thought for a long time before answering. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret every life lost, human and Vacrosian. I regret that we had to prove ourselves through violence." He looked at the graves. "But I don't regret defending our people. I don't regret demanding justice. I don't regret showing the galaxy that we matter. Did we go too far? Maybe. Probably. War always goes too far. But we stopped when we could have continued. We showed mercy when we could have shown none. We remained human, even when being human was hard. Is that enough? It has to be." As the sun set on Threshold 7, Ji-woo approached them. She had been filming the memorial service. "General, what do you want people to remember about this war?" she asked. Tae Jin stood and looked at the graves one last time. "I want them to remember that civilization is a choice, that humans aren't peaceful because we're weak. We're peaceful because we choose to be. We chose restraint for 23 years. We chose diplomacy. We chose to follow rules that others ignored." He turned to face Ji-woo's camera directly. "But we also chose to fight when fighting was necessary. We chose to defend our people when no one else would. We chose to demand justice when justice was denied. And we chose to show the galaxy what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. And now? Ji Woo asked. What do we choose now? Now we choose peace again, but from a position of strength. Now when we offer friendship, the galaxy knows what we're capable of if they betray that friendship. Now when we sit at the negotiating table, we sit as equals. Do you think the galaxy will ever forgive us for what we did? Tae-jin smiled sadly. I don't know, but I know they'll never forget. And maybe that's more important. 1 year after the war ended, humanity had transformed galactic politics completely. The coalition's reforms were in full effect. Human ships patrolled space routes, protecting all species from aggression. Human diplomats negotiated treaties as equals. Human culture spread across the stars, but humanity also remained vigilant. The secret shipyards continued building ships. The weapons programs remained active. The Special Forces units stayed trained and ready. Because the galaxy had learned what happened when humans chose violence. But humans had learned something too. They had learned that being civilized wasn't about being harmless. It was about having the capacity for violence and choosing not to use it. About being strong enough to be kind, about being feared enough to be respected. Young Sik reported to Tae-jin in his office one evening. The Vakrosian Empire has completed their reparation payments ahead of schedule. Their new government has requested a formal alliance with Earth. Interesting. What do you recommend? Accept it, not because we trust them, but because showing mercy now will demonstrate our values. We defeated them, but we don't need to humiliate them forever. Tae-jin nodded. Agree to preliminary talks, but slowly. Trust must be earned. Understood. Young Sik paused. Sir, there's talk of you running for Earth's presidency when your military term ends. I'm a soldier, not a politician. With respect, sir, you're whatever Earth needs you to be. After Young Sik left, Tae-jin sat alone in his office. On his desk was a picture of the memorial on Threshold 7. 47,000 names he would carry with him forever. He had kept his promise. He had made the galaxy remember that human lives mattered. He had shown that civilization was a choice, and humans could choose otherwise. But the cost had been high. Too high. He thought about Hye-jin's words before she died, recorded in the last message she sent to Kwan Ho. Stay kind, brother. No matter what happens, stay kind. Had he stayed kind? Had humanity? Tae-jin didn't know. But he knew they had stayed human. They had fought when necessary, but they hadn't become the monsters they opposed. They had demanded justice without seeking genocide. They had shown strength without losing mercy. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was what it meant to be civilized. Outside his window, Earth turned peacefully in space. And across the galaxy, billions of beings went about their lives knowing one truth above all others. Humanity had chosen to be civilized. But if you gave them no choice, they would remind you why that decision mattered. The war was over, but its lessons would echo across the stars forever.